Welcome to Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. And I mean, here we are, Bubba, unprecedented, the pandemic. You are on location in the bunker. They've split us up because I think one of us is going to get COVID-19. But the Rick and Bubba University podcast, hey, baby, she continues.
Rick, we're still looking for patient 0, clear so far.
Right, so none of us have it. And, someone else we do not think has it is our guest this week. And we'll be talking with Chris Tomlin. Chris, welcome to Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.
Oh, that's it. What a privilege, man. This is big. This is big time. I've done a lot of podcasts, but not this one. So I've reached the pinnacle.
Well,
today.
yeah, you can take your pen and you can go over to that box and you can check it today. How about this?
I like to see you write a song.
That's right. Take this one, toss it in the bucket, and start writing the melody. Chris, I lay awake at night hoping you'll have a hit. But let's talk a minute, all kidding aside, about the seriousness, because it's obvious with what you do for a living. But I think the rest of all of us have realized we had no idea so much of our economy was tied to people gathering. And of course,
oh my goodness.
And when you get into musicians, and I know in your case it's a little different because you still have a lot of publishing going on and all of that. But even with that, the folks that used to stay at home and say, checks are coming to the mailbox because my music is selling, those days, that's pennies now. And the money for people to make a living, if you're a musician and a singer, especially songwriters, like I say, have a little better situation. You go on tour, and the tours are put on hold.
Yeah, it's real, and we're trying to figure this out. I mean, I had you have everything planned. Just like everybody else, I have lots of people on salaries and lots of team and management and booking agencies and then the band and crew and people that I take care of, and that's all on hold. And it's an interesting time right now. I'm kind of thinking through that each day. God's blessed us to be able to hold out for a few months, but if the year was a shutdown, I'm not sure what the next step would be. We'd have to just take some measures that I really don't want to take, but it's definitely real. It's quite an interesting moment especially for gathering people and being able to assemble and that kind of thing. I was talking to a guy that's just recently on the phone, and he's a business. He helps families with their business planning, wealth planning. Has nothing to do with me. I was just talking about some other things, and he was saying, yeah, I was going through the with the families that I help with their investments, and I was telling them each sector how it's doing. He goes, the only sector that's really, really just getting crushed is kind of the one you're in. I was like,
oh boy, there's some good news.
I was like, yes, it is. I was like, it is, because you're exactly right. What we do is, my world doesn't really exist unless I assemble people, even from the church, even from a Sunday to concerts. And so, yeah, it's a crazy time. I don't know if anybody saw this coming.
Well, Bubba, you and I talked about this even in last week's podcast, because we were talking with somebody that does events, conferences, and things like that. And if that was the only thing that I did for a living was the part of what I do when I go out and speak at conferences, every single thing that I had booked for March and for April, and now May has started, they're all postponing or canceling. And so what we forget also, let's say that Chris Tomlin was coming to town. Now, we certainly know about your crew. We certainly know about the band. But you know what a lot of times we don't think about is the impact to the community that now doesn't have that concert coming to town.
Yeah, a lot of different things to think about.
Yeah, the venues, and you think about what also, so everything for us has pretty much been canceled through June. And so for us, we're hoping we've been planning this really massive fall tour, probably the largest of my career thus far. And we've been on hold. It's been under wraps. We've been we've been putting this thing together. And now we're thinking, okay, so say that everything lifts in July. Do you understand? You have to start selling tickets. Are people going to want to start buying tickets to something where everybody's skittish and and so it even affects, even though we were able to meet in the fall, it affects people a little skittish of, should I come to this or should I not? Or can you really promote something? Hey, everybody, we're getting together, in the middle of everybody in their isolated homes. Hey, everybody, let's go together this September. It's going to be awesome. It's like, okay, I got to think through how to even think what's the next wise move for those kind of things.
Yeah. Well, what's appropriate? Yeah.
It's just a different world. I mean, we can't even think in those terms. And, we all hope that it's going to be over at the end of April, but we don't know. We don't know what the numbers are going to say.
Right.
And, it's scary. It's scary for everybody, but I think it's a great time to, for our faith, for people to, we've got all these extra things out of the way. And we've been talking about that on the show a lot, to really zero back in and, get to spend time with your family. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes not so good, after a long time. But, from a faith standpoint, we were talking about it, and Rick made a great point that maybe we should pray not for this to be over, but for us to learn our lesson that God's trying to teach us in it. And when we learn that, I think everything else will take care of itself.
Man, you are saying it so true. God has shown me so much in these days, and I'm so, I feel like the things I was just talking about feel very small to what a lot of people are going through. And I just definitely recognize this. And I'm so grateful for my family at this moment. I'm so grateful to be around my kids. You know what? My best friend has it and has been going through it, and was not just has it in a mild way, but almost got to the end, almost lost his life. And it was, and he's my age, and and healthy and all that stuff. And, you just think about, it was very sobering for me when I started talking to him, because he was like, man, I'm telling you, don't get around anybody. You don't want this. And just the mental thing I had to go through in my head with my kids and my family and all those kind of things. And it's very real. But it brings you back to, I saw this thing from Bill Gates. Who would have thought that Bill Gates would be pastoring people at this moment? He said, I see everything as spiritual in the world. And he said that, I don't see this as the great disaster. I see it as the great corrector. And he was talking about how that he said, I feel like this is correcting a lot of things in people's lives as far as where we've kind of gotten off. And what you were saying, Bubba, is incredible. I feel like it's corrected me in a lot of ways of just my time with the Lord and all those kind of things, that, and my dependence on, where do I put my hope? Do I put my hope in Wall Street? Is my hope there? Well, that's not a very good place. Is my hope is CNN and Fox News and all those things? Is that where my shepherd is? Is that who I'm really looking to? How's that doing for me? Because that's just making me more anxious every day. And so it's like, where is my hope and where am I putting my faith? And that's been an amazing thing for me.
Yeah, I will tell you that I've told this story a good bit, but I think you just parlayed into it, what Bubba said and what we just talked about. So we're going through the Gospel of John in the Wednesday Bible study that we do, and we just finished John 16:33, which, it wrap it up and then gets into the priestly prayer in 17. And Jesus is getting to the end, and of course he realizes that the disciples claim that they've got it. Hey, we got it. And he says, so you really got it? And yeah, we got it. And what he's saying is, you really don't. He said, what's going to happen is I'm going to go to the cross, which y'all can't seem to get. And when I go to the cross, y'all going to scatter and run everywhere. Okay, that's what's about to happen. You don't really have it. And so then after the rebuke, he says, then he gives the encouragement, which is John 16:33. I say this so that you'll have peace in me. Okay, he doesn't say so you have peace in, like you said, Chris, your economics. You're not gonna have peace in what you do for a living, your vocation. We love our wives and we love our children. You're not even gonna find peace in them. Certainly you will to a degree. The only place you're gonna have peace when you get to what he says next, in this world you will face tribulation. Not you might. It may happen, it may not. No, you will face tribulation because this world's broken. And there's going to be times like here in a minute, I'm going to show you that the world's broken. So stop trying to find your peace in this world. You're only going to find it in me. And what he's saying is, so he continues to do things to remind us until we get it, that we only really find peace in him. Then he says, here's why. I've overcome the world. I've really overcome the problem, and you're going to have peace in me. So you go, well, where can I find peace? In Jesus, period. And so what he does is he takes away all these other things we keep trying to find peace in, and he reminds us how they're gone and they can disappear at the drop of a hat. And so remember, the only thing that won't disappear is what I've done for you. And ultimately, I'm going to fix this world. So I've overcome it, and I think what we all do, Rick Burgess certainly does it. Okay, I'm as guilty as any human being. We try to make heaven on earth, and he has to keep coming back down. And just like we talked about, the way we're doing church, and this is not a mandate on the American church. There's a lot of things about the American church we need to fix. However, we can all agree, he's taking the way we do church and says, not doing it that way right now. Going to shake it up. And so, like you both are saying, if we get back to normal, let's not get back to the normal we had, because undoubtedly he didn't like that one. And I remember that I had a friend of mine that really put it best. I'll never forget it, and it's a friend of Bubba's too, named Rich Wingo, and he is a devout follower of Jesus. And he went to a point where he had a stroke, lost his job, was afraid he wouldn't be able to get his memory back, didn't know the damage it had done to his brain, had lost his job in the 2008 disaster, and all that. He was out of work and just had a stroke. And so he comes to me, and he had helped me through, when we went through our calamity in 2008. And so this was after that. And so he comes to me, and I said, man, I want to pray for you. And he said, okay, well, what are you going to pray? We all know what we would say, right? I'm going to pray you get a job, and I'm going to pray that this damage of the stroke is minimal. And you know what he said? Well, then don't pray for me. I said, what? He said, I want you to pray that God holds me into this fire, and he doesn't release me until I learn everything he's trying to teach me. I don't want to be released till I've been refined by it.
Wow.
and I thought to myself, okay, I got some work to do. But
I got to get my shovel out.
But you know what? He gets it. That's 1 Peter 1:6-7. And this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you've been grieved by various trials, to test the genuineness of your faith, that it may pass the refinement test. Gold, when it's refined by fire, perishes, but that we may get to the other side of the test and do what? Glorify Jesus.
Yeah.
And pass the test.
This has been I think that people are going to find that God does some incredible things that they didn't see coming in this time. When I was 9 years old, I went through this in a different way. I was isolated for the entire summer. I got mono when I was 9, and the doctor said, Chris, you can't play. I was into baseball, Little League baseball, just like any boy growing up in Texas would be. And and the doctor said, you have to be at home all summer. You can't be with your friends. You're very contagious. You're in the house. You're isolated to the house for 6 weeks all summer. I just gotten out of school. I was looking forward to baseball. I was like, are you kidding me? And I just like something that's going on in so many homes right now. My parents came home. My dad worked at pharmacy, and he's like, son, you are driving us crazy. We got to find something for you to do. You got to find something. And he said, you want to learn to play the guitar?
How about that?
I was like, okay. And he put a guitar in my hand, started every morning, I taught me a few chords. It was all Willie Nelson, of course. That's all he knew. And he said he would teach me these songs, and then he would go to work and come back, and I'd learn them all day. Little did I know that what I thought was the worst thing in my life put me on a trajectory that changed my life forever. And that what I thought was the end was the beginning of something. And I think for a lot of people, that's going to happen. And maybe you don't see it right now. And maybe you're just pulling your hair out, like my kids are going crazy and driving me crazy. Or maybe you're a kid sitting at home and you're like, man, what is this? I want to be with my friends. You have no idea. I mean, I was so bummed, but now looking back, it's like, wow, how God he sees things and he sees the whole picture.
And that's why we got to trust he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on. I want to get to what this new project, and we got time to do that. That's the beauty of the podcast. We got time. So
hey, look, Rick, before we're done, I need Chris's help with an issue I'm having. So just save me time for that.
No problem. Okay, Bub, I can't wait to hear that, by the way.
I can't wait either.
Yeah. So let's talk about.
It's going to be glaringly obvious when I bring it up.
Okay. When we get to having you on, and certainly in many, many circles, you're a household name. People go, and I remember the first time somebody gave me your first ever CD, and they're like, you're going to love this guy. And I'm like, well, that's an awful, presumptuous statement. Maybe I won't, because I'm always, I'm always saying, hey, if somebody, and then you almost push back. You almost want to say, oh, well, now I took you to the highest standard. So we started listening and loved it and loved what you did, and then didn't realize how many hymns I was singing that you had written. But we assume that everybody knows Chris Tomlin and knows his story. but many people watching this and listening to this may not. You mentioned what happened with mono, so we see that's the step into you learning the guitar. But how do you, what was the road that kind of went from, all right, I learned how to play guitar, and then you ended up where you are now? I know you told the story on the Christmas tour about, how great is our God, and that's when we fell in love with We the Kingdom, by the way. The audience has fallen in love with them. I mean, that was,
they're amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for bringing that and letting us see that for the first time. I'd never heard of them till that night. But what happened? How did you get into, I'm a follower of Jesus. I'm going to write about Jesus. I'm going to write songs that, in this genre. What's the Chris Tomlin story?
Man, thank you for letting me share that. I love sharing this because it's one of those where every time I tell it, I'm like, I cannot believe this. This is how it happens. It's just one of those, it's only God kind of things. I think you'll see that through this, what I'm about to share. But so my dad teaching me to play guitar. Like I said, he started teaching me because I have mono and I can't leave the house. And I started learning songs. When I grew up in the church, I loved playing in the church. I loved playing songs in my church. And it was a small town. I grew up in a really small town called Grand Saline, Texas, which means Big Salt, Texas. There's like a salt block. There's a little salt block in Main Street. People come all over and lick it. It's just
they don't now.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't know.
And so they have the Salt Palace, and they're the Salt Queen, the Salt Rodeo. Everything is about Morton salt. If you've ever poured Morton salt on anything, it comes from my town. Everybody's a miner, miners in the salt mine kind of thing. And I come from this little town, 2,000 people, had 40 people in my high school kind of thing. And I was from a little town, and I had one church there, and I would play the music because I was the only kid who could kind of play something. So they had me up there playing songs. And I just loved it when people would sing with me. And I didn't even know at that time God was putting that in me, like wiring me that way. But I would go home and tell my mom and dad, I don't really like it when people, like, when I'm up there and they're just watching me. I really like it when people start singing with me. So I started trying to write songs in that way that were simple, that people could just sing. This was before the huge explosion of worship music everywhere. I mean, my church, it was 3 hymns, the same 3 hymns, skipping the third verse, first, second, and fourth, 3 hymns, the message, and the Cowboys, right? It was like, It was like, you did that. That's what you did.
And look, the time of response had to be just as I am. If it's not, you can't even do it.
Just as I am, but make sure it was done before kickoff, right?
That's right.
Cowboys at noon. So that was the thing growing up. And I could start getting some opportunities to play at church. And then I was asked to do, there was a guy in my hometown. He played and traveled. And I thought that was the coolest thing. He played at other churches. Other churches had him come play. And I thought, wow, incredible. He was about my dad's age. One day he comes around and I'm in high school, and he says, hey, I talked to your dad. I'm driving out to Texarkana. Would you like to come and set up my keyboards and set up my guitar and sell tapes in the back? That'll tell you what years it was. It was selling tapes in the back. And I was like, sure, I'd love to. And I was like, this is awesome. And so we drove about a 3-hour drive from where I lived. And so I was selling tapes in the back. I'd set up everything, helping him. And in the middle of the concert, he said, hey, I got a good friend here in the back. His name is Chris. He's selling the tapes in the back. He traveled with me tonight. And he's from my town where I'm from. And you know what? I'm just going to walk off the stage and he's going to finish the concert. And I was just like, he didn't mention this to me. He never said this. We had a 3-hour drive. He didn't say he was going to do this. I was like, oh my gosh. And there's about 500 kids. It was a youth kind of thing that was, as big as my town almost. And I was like, oh my goodness. And everybody's concerned and looking at me. I'm back there at the tape table, just kind of like deer in the headlights. And I walk up there and I play some songs, and I think it was pretty awful. And afterwards, I go back to the tape and start selling his tapes. And afterwards, a youth pastor comes and says, man, that was incredible. Can you come play at our church? And I'm thinking, gosh, the music at your church must be so bad. Because that was not great. And so I said, sure. I wasn't smart enough to say, I'm not ready yet. I was like, yeah, I'll go. And he said, we're going to do this week-long crusade, and a youth crusade in the summer for youth. And I mean, they're all my age. I'm 18 at this point. I'm graduating high school. He's like, could you come and do the music for the week? I was like, yeah, I'd love to. So it's getting closer to that time. And I'm realizing I don't really know enough songs to play for a week. I know like 3 or 4 songs. That's about it. And I'm supposed to play every night of this thing. And all these kids are my age. I'm like, what am I going to do? I've never done this before in my life. I get a call from this guy. He's got this deep voice. I'll never forget this as long as I live. He's got this huge deep voice. He says, Chris, my name is James, and I'm speaking at this event, and I see your name on there, and I'm calling you because I've never heard of you, and I'd like to know what kind of music you do if we're going to be partnered for this week. And I was like, well, James, I was like, the reason you've never heard of me is I've never done this before, and you're calling me. I live with my parents. And you're calling me. I don't really know what I'm doing. I said, I know 3 songs. And he's like, and there's like, imagine the long pause on the phone. And he was just like, okay. He said, can I send you some music? And I was like, to learn. I was like, yes, please. And I remember he sends me these tapes and CDs of these worship songs, and it was simple songs like I love you, Lord, and Lord, you're more precious than silver, all these early choruses. And I was like, wow. And I remember getting note cards, and I wrote all the songs down on the note cards, and I learned them on my guitar, and I wrote all the chords. And I came loaded with this first thing I ever did with these set of note cards. And I came loaded with it. And every night I would get there before the kids got in the room, and I would set the note cards down on the stage, and I would just, in the order that I was going to do the songs, and I would just look at those note cards and play songs. I never looked at anybody, never even addressed the people in the room. I was scared to death. I was just like, just get up there and play my songs on note cards. At the end of the week, I say this for this reason. At the end of the week, James, he comes to me and he says, he was kind of coaching me through the whole week. Hey, man, you might want to just welcome people. You might want to pray. You might want to say something. That
Look up.
Exactly. And I know people can't see me right now, but when I'm talking about, I'll try to say visually. I was doing every song. I would play the note card, and I would stop, and then I would take my mic stand and move it to the next note card and move down. And I had the note cards down the stage in the order. I mean, it was a mess. He's like, 2 things, James, at the end of the week said, 2 things, Chris. One is, you have no idea what you're doing. And I was like, yes, got that. He's like, and he said, the second thing I want to tell you is, you have no idea how God's going to use your songs all over the world.
What?
And at this point, yeah, exactly. And I said, what? And he said, I've been praying for you all week. And I've been praying for you. God is telling me that he's going to use your songs all over the world.
Wow.
Now, Rick Bubba, I didn't have any songs. I'm on looking at note cards. I'm playing other people's songs. And he said, you're going to write songs and the whole world's going to sing them. And I remember he put his hand on my head. We're standing there and he just reaches out and puts his hand on my head. Now, as a Texas boy growing up in a Baptist church, I wasn't ready for that. And there was no like head bowed, eyes closed. He's just looking straight at me, puts his hand on my head. And he said, God, I pray you make Chris a psalm writer for his generation. And it was like lightning went through me, man. And I was like, and he said, and I left that place going, I don't know what just happened, but something did. And I began to start writing songs in this way, trying to write songs in this way. And sure enough, next few years, things keep going and opportunities start coming, and I'll get into college. And now I don't even know how this is happening, but every weekend people are asking me to come play. I'm starting to write little songs and people are finding out about them. They're hearing of them and they're like, oh, we love those songs. Our youth group's playing those songs. Or, oh, you're the guy who wrote these songs, and can you come play at our church? And it just keeps growing and growing and growing and then the songs just keep expanding and expanding. And it was like, I think it was probably 10 years where I felt like the songs were they were the arrow out of the bow. They were going way further than me, but I was just chasing songs around the country. People didn't know who I was. What I'm trying to say is, but they knew these songs. These songs were being sung, and they were putting 2 and 2 together, and they'd come invite me to come play. It was probably 10 years before I caught up with the songs. Like, oh, that's the guy behind the songs. And so, but I was starting to write these songs, and it's crazy how full circle God brings everything. Last year at this time, in February of last year, it was fast forward about 20 something years. After that, James, the same James, calls me, and he says, hey, still deep voice. He said, man, I feel like God wants me to run for Congress. And I was like, okay. And he said, would you campaign for me? He said, I'm in Oklahoma now. Would you campaign for me? I was like, sure. I mean, he said, I need to get people. He goes, will you come to the Walmarts and everything and do little concerts for me? He was it's payback, right? He's like, I got you started. Can you help me out? And it was one of those things. I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so we start doing these little campaigns for him. He wins. He's never run for anything.
Yeah, yeah.
He wins U.S. Congressman from Oklahoma. And then 2 years later, I'm looking on the TV and there's Wolf Blitzer talking about something with the Foreign Relations Committee. And there is James. And he says, Senator James Lankford. And I was like,
wow.
Oh my gosh. I said, you're a senator now? And I called him and I was like, how'd you become a senator? He goes, well, I was here for 2 years and then the Senate seat opened and now I'm U.S. Senator. And now he's on the so many things. He's on the finance committee. He's on all these things, running so many things. You'll see him on the news all the time.
Oh yeah, I've actually met him. Because he and Scott Dawson are actually friends with Scott Dawson Evangelistic Association, and I've met James Lankford, and there's that voice you're talking about, and he's a fighter, no doubt about it. I had no idea that James Lankford was the one that prayed to give us Chris Tomlin.
He's right.
That's crazy.
And so he said, would you help me run? So I did. I helped him run. He wins. He becomes a senator and everything. And then last year, he said, hey, I'm in charge of the National Prayer Breakfast of all things. Why don't you come lead it with me? And I was like, okay. So last year, you can imagine me standing there with James. And I'm thinking about being 18 years old.
Wow.
And I think there was about 140 nations represented. There was about 3,000 leaders, as you know what that thing is. And it was an overflow of everything. And here's the president, the vice president, and all sitting here next to me, and me and James. And I'm thinking about being 18 years old and him saying the whole world's going to sing your songs. I'm sitting there, and no one knows that. Everybody just knows as Chris Tomlin up there now. But I'm up there playing, and man, I was a mess, bro. I couldn't keep it together. I was just thinking, God, how did you see all this? And when I was, again, just a kid looking at note cards, didn't even know what he was doing, scared to look at anybody. And then here we are. And so the journey has been incredible. I look around and I'm just like, gosh, I'm so grateful that I tell people this a lot, but I wasn't smart enough to market. There was no marketing plan. There was no, I didn't have a team around me. There was nobody saying, hey, this is how we're going to do it. God just took these songs and started just through his spirit, just started blanketing the country with them. It started in Texas and then it just went out, and then it started getting emails from songs overseas being translated in different languages and these churches. And I was just like, wow. And then everything caught up, and then record companies start calling and they're like, hey, we want to we would love to publish this and those kind of things. And all that stuff came way later. But I especially just tell people who are like in the waiting of like, well, I don't know what God wants me to do. When I was an eighth grader, I remember praying. I remember it being in a worship night with a bunch of kids, and I felt like God was speaking to me. I didn't even know what that meant. I just felt like my whole body was on fire. And I remember running out the back of the little place where we're meeting and leaving. I remember taking off running, and I can take you to the exact tree today. I found this tree outside. It was the middle of the night. The camp counselors were running looking for me because they're in charge of me, and I was gone. And I found this tree, and I just knelt under this tree, and I said, God, whatever you want. I said, I know you're speaking to me. And I remember saying this to the Lord. I can remember that as an eighth grader, these words. I know you're speaking to me. I have no idea what you're saying. I said, I'm an eighth grader. You're God of all creation. And I said that. Yeah. And I said, I have no idea what you're saying, but I want to say that I am available, whatever you want for the rest of my life. I am available to you. And I think that's what God is looking for, and saying, I didn't say I want to be a songwriter. I want to be a singer. I want to do this. I want to do that. I just, Lord, I want to be available wherever you lead me. And here we are talking together, and it's just unbelievable to me when I think about what God has done, and so grateful every day.
Yeah, two things I take away from that. Number one, and certainly not the first people to say this, but I've heard it said before, and you did it. Just put your yes on the table. Just go to God and say, "Here's my yes." Now you didn't know it was going to be this. You just said, "Here's my yes." And the other thing is, of all the things you didn't know, Bubba, all the things that you and I have seen that we didn't know, have you thought about all the things we don't know now?
Oh, I know. It's scary, isn't it?
What's next? We don't know what God's going to do with the rest of our life.
Rick, let's be honest. February, we didn't know was going to be involved in a pandemic.
No,
did
you're
we?
right. You're right.
Chris, that's an amazing story. It's crazy how all that happens and how God can move and do that. I did want to tell you two things. You said something about people can't see you. We can see you on the podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we put it on. We put it on
and
YouTube.
I don't want to scare you, but a young lady broke in your house right behind you during that segment.
Yeah, we're on YouTube and on the podcast, so you can see it and hear it. Either one, you can take your pick.
I'll tell Lauren. I'll tell Lauren she's on the podcast.
Listen, I wish she would come in and sit down with you. This is great. I love this format.
Chris, thanks for sharing that testimony with us. I can never hear it enough. But let's talk about what's going on that's right now and going to be coming out this summer. It's together, and this is a collaboration record. I know you and Thomas Rhett have a song that's out right now. So how did this all happen?
Yeah, this is crazy. The short story of it is a year ago at this time, I didn't know anybody that was on this record. Honestly, I think there's one person that I'm going to be on this record that I knew of. I knew who these people were, but I didn't know them personally. And about this, in May of last year, I went down vacation with my family, went to a gym to work out. As you can tell, you can probably see me.
Oh, yeah. Looking good.
I mean, yeah, right. not really doing.
Me too.
Yes. Hey, turn it down, Tomlin. Easy. Don't cause women to stumble. All right, go ahead.
Exactly. Totally kidding. So I went to do a little workout, and I'm in the gym by myself. And then this other guy walks in. I was like, I recognize that guy. And it was Tyler Hubbard, who's the lead singer of Florida Georgia Line. And I was like, oh, I know this guy. So I walked up and I just said, I didn't think this again, not expecting the conversation to go where it's about to go. I walked up and said, hey, Tyler, my name is Chris Tomlin. And he's like, are you kidding me? And I was like, no. And he said, bro, I'm not lying. This is as fast as it went. He goes, bro, this is crazy. This is full circle of my life. This is full circle of my life right now. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, you're the reason I'm in music. And I was like, what? He goes, and I felt my age. He's like, when I was in the 8th grade, I started listening.
And then for a minute, he goes, wait a minute. I thought you were James Langford. No, go ahead.
Right. He said, I started listening to you, and I wanted to do what you did. I started in high school, and I started being a worship leader in my youth group in high school. And he goes, I can tell you where I was standing. I was a freshman at Belmont and in Bridgestone Arena in Nashville at this conference called Passion. He starts talking to me about passion like I don't know what it is.
That's funny.
And he goes, it was this college conference, and I was a student there, and you were leading. I saw all these students singing. I thought, this one I want to do the rest of my life. He said, the next week, I meet BK, who's his duo partner. And he said he's leading worship at Belmont at a Wednesday night thing. We become a worship duo. We start making $100 a week at this church north of Nashville. And he said, and then we're writing country songs. And then the country songs explode. And the rest is history. And my life goes crazy. Get uber famous, uber rich, everything that comes with that. And he said, and now God's done so much in my life. And it just brought me back to him in so many different ways. This is 5 minutes in the conversation. And he said, and I walk in here today, and you're standing here, and it's another sign of God just speaking to me. And he goes, this is full circle in my life, man. I think we're supposed to be friends. We should hang out. I'm thinking, okay. So we exchanged numbers. I'm thinking I won't hear another word from him. The next morning he texts me. He's like, hey, bro, what are you doing? I was like, I'm with my fam. He's like, let's get together. Let's start writing some songs. So I was like, oh, let's just smash things up. My world, your world, the way I write, the way you write. Let's just smash things up and see what happens. See what God's maybe doing in all of this. We're connected for a reason. And we just started having fun writing songs. One day we're writing songs, and he said, what do you think if you came out on tour with us? And I was like, I cannot imagine. It's as party as it gets, right? They are the party country band.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I was like, I cannot. He goes, what if we did some praise in the middle of our concert? I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, no. Because I think I just want to see what happens. I was like, okay. So we did. We put in Atlanta last year and Vegas last year. Atlanta was amazing. He goes, let's go to do it in Vegas. Let's see what we got. He goes, that'll tell us what we got. And I was like, okay. So we did it. And it was amazing. People who didn't see it coming. And they're in the middle of it's been like just beer fest all day and country party town. And here in the middle of it, Tyler just stops and he goes, I just want to take a moment. I've got a friend here. he's the reason BK and I got in music, and we're going to have a moment of praise to God. You know, we grew up in leading worship in our churches, and we did, and we had this moment, and I don't even know how it's going to work, but I was like, are you, I was like, if you're going to open the doors for this, why wouldn't I do this? So it was incredible. So things have progressed, and like, what if we make a record together? What if we did something when we were at these songs, make a record? So we're calling the record Together. It's me and Florida Georgia Line and Thomas. Now we've gotten lots of friends who have the same heart. They love the Lord, and this gives them an opportunity to share their faith by coming on with me and writing songs. And so all kinds of people on this. Shay from Dan and Shay, Thomas Rhett, FGL, Russell Dickerson, who's blowing up. He was my guitar tech 3 years. He was 3 years of me on the bus as my guitar tech. Now he's becoming a country star. All these people. So it's kind of like these, a lot of the country artists and me. So it's really fun. My dad put a guitar in my hand and said, boys, he said, son, it's 3 people, Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, Johnny Cash. That's who you need to know in life. I was like, okay. And now I'm at full circle for me making a record with all these country guys.
It's so funny you said that. I'm telling you, I'm sitting there and, I'm looking at you doing the announcements on social media, and Sherry, my wife's across the room. And you said, I got this big announcement coming up. And I'm like, hey, Tom has got an announcement. And so and she goes, okay. And she hauled us across the room. I did not think you were going to announce Florida Georgia Line. When you announced that they were doing something with you, I sat there and I leaned in, and Sherry says, what's happened? I said, I think he said Florida Georgia Line. And I mean, I did not see that coming. And right. So, and then here's the beautiful thing. The fans of Florida Georgia Line didn't see that coming either.
No, they did not.
And so the cool part is, here's God opening doors in so many bizarre ways to get you in front of people who might not otherwise have heard you do what you do.
No,
Chris, is this your way of telling us to watch for you? You're going to be hosting the CMAs. Is that where this is going?
Could you imagine? No, I don't think it's going that far.
but you can just see how this could be woven together and give you a whole new audience.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, it's amazing. And these guys, I'm just getting to know them and know Thomas and his heart, and just how much his heart for children, and it's just incredible. I mean, these guys have an amazing platforms that God's given them. And I think that, Thomas came to me and he's like, I just been thinking, man, what am I doing? What am I doing with all these platforms, this influence right. God's given me? Yeah. And I want to do something. I want to make a difference. And I just love that.
So, Bubba, you definitely want to ask Chris something that he could help you with before we wrap up today.
Well, this Zoom format, we're having a little different camera shot than we usually do. And Chris, a few years ago, I had to, go to the reading glasses like so many of us do when we get into our, 40s and whatever. And I look terrible in mine. I mean, you wear them down on your nose, you look over them and all that. And I know you have real hip glasses. And I just want to know, are those readers or are they something else?
They are readers, man. Last year I woke up and could not. I mean,
it's like Vaseline. It's like Vaseline's in your eyes.
In one day, I woke up.
Mine too.
See a thing. I was like, yeah. I can't. I was like, babe, I have no idea what any of this says. I don't know what has happened, and so here we are.
Mine happened that way. I hear some people, it goes over time. I literally got up one morning, could not see the newspaper, and I told Betty, I said, I got pink eye or something. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. And everybody said, no, you're over 40. And now I have like 1,000 pair of glasses stuck around, but I don't like mine. I think yours looks hip. See, I look like an old man trying to do this.
You're looking good, man. You look good, bro.
Yeah, that's right. I look real good. So those are just readers. They're like plain. And then you got the magnifier on the bottom.
I just got a reading prescription in them. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, that is awesome. I got to hip it up, Rick. There's ain't no way around.
Well,
I had to go full glass.
I had to give up too. I went from no glasses, LASIK surgery. Then I went to readers, and now I just finally gave. It was so funny, and it says a lot. I said I always use this as an example of the Holy Spirit. Is when I went to the eye doctor, and he said, "All right, you still can do the readers." And I said, "So I don't need glasses for just functioning in life." He goes, "You're on the borderline. How would you like though if I show you how you could see?" And I was like, "Oh, he's got me now. He's got me now." and he hands me the glasses. He goes, "Now this is how you could see." And I said, "Okay." I said, "You're trying to do the clarity of the Holy Spirit has hit me. I now can see." And he said, "Yeah." So then I just went with glasses and went with what
Chris,
I could.
Did you go with like the line, or is it where it's all runs together so you can't see it?
Progressive,
I think they call it.
I tried the progressive at first, and then I couldn't. I was just like, I was hitting walls in my head. I don't know where I'm going.
Right.
And so I said, no, just give me the reader thing. And so I take them off when I'm like talking to people because I can see fine. But if I'm just like, if I have to read something or I just can't see, so I just put them on for that.
What you could do,
basically have full readers then, not just the little ones. You got the full thing, right?
Full readers.
Yeah.
Full readers.
What you could have done, Chris, is go to the Progressive and then put your index cards on the stage again and look down through.
Yeah, you've been able to read them.
Exactly.
Well, Chris,
oh man,
yeah, it's been great. Thanks for taking time to be with us. Thanks for being such a good friend over the years. And I was thinking back to, even the times that you have been more than willing to come alongside, back in the, I remember we did the Stadium Fest things, and, this is when you were really, just God was just taking you to a whole new level, and you came and you did that with us, and you've just been such a good friend to the show and good friend to our family, and I'm excited about this new door that God has opened for you, because even in country music, you we know this, been doing secular entertainment too. Some of these people that may be, followers of Jesus, in their personal life, and they don't really know how to balance the two, in the world but not of the world. And this could be an opportunity for you to maybe help them along that path as well, because I think some of them sound like they're eager, they're just not sure how to balance all of it. So
exactly right.
Yeah, it might be a great opportunity, right. And certainly you're going to get access to an audience that needs to hear what God's saying through you.
Right, incredible. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful to be with you guys.
Man, our pleasure. We want to have you back sometime. Have your wife on. Man, we remember when you were praying for a godly woman. That's been a while back,
I remember when you guys set me up with a girl on the show. Do y'all remember that?
I forgot about that.
I thought we'd get through this without that.
Right.
I mean, it's PTSD right now. I am so scarred from that moment.
Yeah, and you remember there was something similar. We were doing something, I think, with Nasser, and we were over at his house, and our wives and everything were over there, and I made some comment to you, and I remember your face. I was like, is there something wrong with you we don't know about? I mean, is there an issue? And we got everybody together and prayed for you. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
But look, see, all in God's timing.
Hey, and God's blessed me. I got two beautiful little girls.
Yeah, man.
8 and 5, and so grateful, man. God's done such good. He's been so good to me.
Well,
you realize how long that's been?
That has been.
Yeah.
Next podcast, we got to meet your wife.
I was about to say, all right, so we know Chris even longer than I realized. We've known you a long time.
Yeah. We have.
Yeah. Long time.
All right. Well, thanks for being with us, Chris. And be sure you can go to christomlin.com. All the information is there about this project or really anything going on, and hopefully all the things that were scheduled to happen beyond all this pandemic. The Lord will be gracious, and we'll get to the other side of it, and you can keep up with him there. And Chris, just thank you for being with us on this edition of Rick and Bubba University.